all about preventative maintenance. And so I just recently bought my new car. I'm figuring out, my brother was a previous owner, so I'm asking him all sorts of questions about, when was the last time you did this and this and this? And that preventative maintenance is so important for a car, but also for our own bodies. So that way we have those little checkup moments. We do the required things that we know helps our system, so that way we can lead it to the greatest health possible. And so that's some of these yin poses that we're doing today. I would consider some of those essential maintenance type poses that just help open up our body in extremely important ways to help the system continue to flow both energetically and physically the best it possibly can. And so just like normal, let's get ourselves started, laying all the way down onto our backs. Make sure that you're comfortable. If you need to make adjustments in any pose ever, take the time to do those adjustments. This is what keeps us comfortable, and make sure that we're not aggravating things that are already irritated. So taking a moment here, we're laying on our back and we're scanning through our system just to check in with how the physical body is doing right now. So checking in with the feet and the toes. Checking in with ankles and legs. The knees. The thighs. The hips and low back. The middle back and upper back. Chest. Arms and hands, the shoulders and neck, and all the muscles all around the face and head. Checking in with them, all of them are in this receptive attitude for yoga, this receptive mode, willing to be stretched and to be opened and to be breathed through. So with this beautiful intention of maintenance to help us get started, let's begin to take our knees into the chest and start to do gentle movements, just rocking around for a moment or two, helping us check in with the hips and the sacrum. Part of preventative maintenance is actually, checking in with how things are right now. So using this rocking motion just to give ourselves that chance to figure it out. What can we do that will best serve us today? And then from here, we're going to start off our first pose. This is a twist. In yin, we call it twisted roots. We drop the left foot down so that the right knee can cross over the left knee. Nice and tight cross there. We bump the hips just an inch or so over to the right so that the knees can begin to fall over to the left. Keep the shoulders open, both shoulders connected and grounded to the earth. And then without forcing the knees down into anything uncomfortable, we're letting the muscles of the back start to relax into the twist. So from this beautiful space, our breath flows. And we get to be with all these systems of our body. Being in with the cardiovascular system, feeling that heart gently and rhythmically pound in our chest, that constant metronome that keeps us alive. That heart that's been with us even before the brain was with us. And feeling the skin and all the contact we have with the ground. Feeling the muscular system and the bones, the skeletal system. enjoying and feeling gratitude for the digestive system and the respiratory system, breathing into our lungs. And grateful for the nervous system, which connects all parts of us into a great computer and also helps us to experience and feel all that's going on around us. Connecting to our brain, helping us to think and to feel. So just feeling such tremendous gratitude and noticing how the body responds to this twisted shape. Notice how things are moving and just simply relaxing into a pose where we previously were not. The best thing about a biological system like our body is that movement is life. So simple poses like this is part of that maintenance. As we're here, the breath is continuing to flow. If you're going at an extremely slow pace, we're at about 3 more long, deep breaths for this side of the twist. So as that third breath wraps itself up, we'll gently unwind the legs, help the hips return back to the ground, and then recenter the hips on the mat. Before we go on to the second side, let's lift our hips up into bridge pose, just a simple contraction of those muscles. So pressing the feet into the earth, feel the hips lift. Feel everything that you were just stretching on that right half of the body. Feel how the spine reacts to this. Take another breath in. With that beautiful exhale, return your spine back down 1 vertebrae at a time to the earth. And then we start to set up the second side. Left leg crosses over the right, nice and tight across at the knees. Hips bump about 1 inch to left. And then the knees start to fall open to the right. Again, this is a slow, gentle process. We're here for several minutes so that we don't have to rush anything. So begin to allow. And in the process of allowing, we're also receiving such a tremendous feeling all throughout our body. Mentally try to check in once again with every one of those systems of the body that we listed off previously, or at least all that you can remember, and try to feel as much as you can of each of those systems. Doing this little check in and check up right now. And now check in with any adjustments that you can make in your body to become even more comfortable in this twist. Maybe if the head was trying to be upright previously, see if the neck will be more comfortable heading to the stretch, gazing over left fingers. Are there any muscle groups of our back or of the hips that you feel contracting to hold you back? And does that want to release now that we've been in the pose for a little while? Noticing what speaks to you the most right here, perhaps the belly, that breath flowing in and out. Enjoying those last 3 deep breaths on this side. With that final exhale, we begin to uncross the knees. Almost give permission for gravity to be what helps to return your spine back to the earth. Take that moment to recenter the hips. And then let's enjoy another bridge pose. Press the feet into the earth and feel the hips practically floating up to the sky. Another beautiful inhale. And with our exhale, we begin to return our spine back down. And we're going to take our time heading up toward a beautiful seated position. So some of us might be rolling directly up. Some of us, our back after that deep stretch needs more attention. So just roll over to the side and press into the ground until you're upright. From this upright position, we take a beautiful cobbler's pose. Bottoms of the feet touching together. The knees opening just however much they will today. Not any sort of a forceful quality in the opening, just letting gravity take over there. And asking our spine what would be the most helpful thing we can do. If our spine is rounded backwards behind the hips, perhaps the most helpful thing is to plant the hands behind so that we can experience that straight spine, allowing the hips to just relax open like a book. Or perhaps if we can sit upright, we begin to tilt forward to increase that stretch through the inner thighs. So choose that perfect position for you and give yourself time to relax your muscles into that shape. 30 seconds to 45 seconds is what's required to get past the strictly muscular level of this stretch. Eventually we can find more of a resting quality to this. So perhaps that means rounding the spine even more. If you happen to have a block, or you're able to stack your fists in a way that your forehead can rest down, you're absolutely welcome to find that quality. And wherever you are, we're breathing and allowing these beautiful hips to open for us as the muscles of the back start to stretch. Similar to a child's pose in the back, just the hips are very different arrangements. Folds are a beautiful time to take an internal focus, scanning through the body and asking the body if we're giving it everything that it needs from us. And that's on all levels of our existence: physical, spiritual, mental, emotional. Myself everything I need right here and right now. seeing if we can extend the depth and the length of the breath a little bit longer. Thinking of anything but the body, we're being right here, right now. Good. As the hip joints are loosened up here, we're going to swing our legs around us and come into a squat position, the yogic squat. If this is a pose that is not comfortable for you on its own, you can do something, find a stack of books or a block to sit on instead, or even sit on a chair and help your knees get pressed open. That would be perfectly fine as well. Otherwise, try to get your heels all the way flat on the ground, so changing the stance until that's possible, or shoving a blanket under the heels if the heels will not touch. The elbows continue to push into each of the knees, helping to get the hips to open for us. Rather than just sacrificing the spine, trying to just balance here, let's try to find length. So imagining, even if it's not all the way possible, imagining a straight line from that low back, right at the connection of the sacral joint, all the way up to the head. Finding so much length. Hips are naturally pushing open, spine's elongating. And the neck can stay in this beautiful straight line, or you can begin to go through any sort of intuitive neck stretches that feel amazing right now. Even as simple as just dropping the chin down, or doing gentle half circles, rocking from one ear over the shoulder to the other ear over the other shoulder. Setting up this slow, rhythmic pace of breathing that can continue with us throughout the rest of the day. In yoga, oftentimes we talk about the breath, and that's because the breath, being this slow and deep pace, is so important for the health of our body. Now, this deep can mean different things to different people. So when I mean deep, I'm talking about breathing all the way into the belly. If we just breathe into our lungs, just barely moving the shoulders and the rib cage to allow that breath to happen, we're really only letting the breath flow through the top lobes of the lungs. And so the circulation isn't nearly anywhere close to optimal. So instead, when we take this deep belly breath, enough that our guts and the belly are pushed downward, that helps us to really fill the lungs all the way to the bottom lobes. And then that slow pace in and out helps us to have that chance for the blood to do the whole transition from carbon dioxide to oxygen. So feel that deep belly breath continuing to flow rhythmically. And with this rhythmic breath, we've included a very important aspect to our self-maintenance, that deep breathing. Let's take 3 more wonderful breaths in this shape. With our gentle release, I usually come out of this by placing my hands down, and then I'm able to swivel one knee to the ground and then the other. Take a moment to give your body any sorts of transitioning poses that it needs. If the ankles that are tight, roll those ankles out behind us in this kneeling posture. Perhaps it's the hips that need to wag left and right. Or maybe the cat-cow movements will help the spine be free from any sort of tightness that it just experienced. So take that last breath or two to introduce any of those wiggles that are extremely helpful. We're going to go into a nice back bending shape, allowing our spine to be in the opposite direction from the last pose, rather than rounded in more like a fetal, like a baby in the fetus shape. We're dropping down and allowing the whole heart to open and expand backwards. So lower down onto your hips. This pose can either be more of a Sphinx pose with the elbows resting on the ground, just peeling the heart forward and through. Or perhaps you're taking more of a seal pose today, hands planting at least as wide as the mat, lifting up the elbows. Now, if you're taking the seal, you can play with the hands going a little bit further forward or walking a little bit further back. Walking back will take it into a deeper arch. So your choice. Find the best shape for your spine. And make sure that you're not just jamming the vertebrae of the low back into a crunched shape to allow this to happen. So sometimes what I'll do is contract my glutes so that my low back is a little bit in more of a long fountain shape rather than just that crunched shape of the low back. My low back is extremely flexible, so that's what wants to give, but that's not what the best thing is for the discs of the vertebrae. Keeping that gentle contraction through the glutes so that the whole spine gets to open. This is helping to reverse all those years that we've been hunched forward, helping to allow the rib cage to learn that it's okay to be in this direction. In fact, establishing this as an other normal, so that our spine isn't just stuck in one shape ever. We're breathing, we've got a little bit more time here. Notice how the shape of gravity is different for the breath here. With any inhale, what our breathing into the belly does, what that does is create the airbag effect that helps to keep our low back even safer. if you're doing the seal, this does require a little bit more effort, and effort can make the breath more shallow. So let's go for those last 3 breaths, trying to still continue that deepness that we found before. Imagining that this was effortless. We're floating here. This is the easiest thing ever. Try to make your breath that easeful. And with that last exhale, we're lowering ourselves out of the back bend. We can slide our hands under our shoulders to help us press up and back, taking a little bit of time in a child's pose. It's going to be your choice whether the child's pose has narrow or wide knees today. Find the shape that feels best in the spine as we begin to walk the hands forward. Allowing forehead to rest down if at all possible. And feel how little effort is required in the spine now. Take 3 more breaths right here, deep and relax all the way into the belly. Start to slide our hands right under our shoulders. We're going to lift our hips up so that we can step our right foot to the outside right edge of the mat. Right foot clear up to that right edge. We want to be able to sink our hips forward without the knee going past the toes. Hands are both on the inside of the right foot for now. And this first one is Wandering Dragon. And so what we're doing is starting to walk our hands even further off that left edge of the mat. And if you find yourself able to drop down to one elbow, or maybe both elbows, you find that shape. Remember, we're not backing the hips away, as in hips do not go over the back knee. Instead, the weight's still going forward toward that front knee. This opens up very deep areas through the inner thigh muscles, even into the hip. Beautiful deep breaths here. Always know if it does get too intense, you can back off. Sometimes that means coming back up on the hands or backing your hips up just a little bit. You do want yourself to be close to the edge, but pain is never requested in this. Pain is not welcome, and pain looks like sharp, stabbing, throbbing, or shooting sensations. Anytime that starts to happen, that's a pain rather than just a stretch. So that's our indication to back off a little bit. See if you can find a little bit more length through the spine itself. It naturally wants to round. See if you can find it lengthening from the hip to the head, just a little bit longer. What muscles are you willing and able to let relax? And we've got about 3 breaths for this shape. After the 3rd breath, we come back up onto our hands, and we're going to take one more pose before we switch sides. With hips still pushing forward, we're taking our right hand onto the right knee to continue to allow that right knee to rotate open. As much as it can rotate open to the side, it's allowed to. I oftentimes even turn the right toes open to the right, so that way the hip is willing to stay open even more. So some of us will be resting on the wrist. If that's too much pressure, you can turn it into a fist instead, or even drop down to the elbow instead. If you're on the elbow, it may be possible to rest the side of this left hip down, rotating the spine all the way open. Again, try to find length through the spine wherever you're at. This is mostly about this twist and this rotation through this right thigh, but we can also include the spine into this shape. Stacking the shoulders, or perhaps one last variation, right hand planting behind us to completely rotate the spine up and over. So breathing into this shape, we've got a little bit more time. Three more breaths, deep and full right here. When your third completes, we take our dear sweet time, twisting back around, coming up onto hands, and gradually, perhaps finding length through this leg for just a moment until we're ready to swing this right leg all the way back. going immediately into the second side, left foot forward. Hips starting to relax forward, doing that check that knee is not going past toes. And from that long shape, we begin to walk both hands off that right side of the mat. Maybe we drop down onto one elbow, maybe onto both elbows. And remember, you can change your variation. Just because you choose one shape doesn't mean you're stuck there for 3 minutes. You're welcome to readjust as needed for the body to receive its best possible stretch. Here we're heading into those last 3 breaths over to this wandering dragon. Each of us will finish those 3 breaths at a different pace. So when you're finished, this one's the rotation of this left hip. So the toes can turn out. The left knee can push that left hip open. Maybe we stay on wrist or elbow. Maybe we drop all the way onto the back hip, continuing to press that knee even wider open. And only if it's helpful, continue to spiral that left hand all the way around, open to the ground. If you're spiraling open, make sure you're not losing placement of where this foot is. If it scoots down for you to spiral open, you just took all that stretch away that we were hoping to achieve from this shape. To make sure the friction's strong enough right here, I'll even flex my foot, lifting the toes up, so that I'm helping to keep strength through this ankle area, making sure to not weaken it. As we mentioned previously, the body loves motion. It loves movement. That's what helps to keep the cells lubricated. And that's what helps this communication process continue to happen. It's almost like the moment we give up on movement, the moment the body starts to deteriorate, at least from that type. Now, this isn't to say that we wear our joints out. There's healthy ways to move, to keep the body continuing to flow and move. we're approaching our last 3 breaths here. So as that starts to finish, let's bring ourselves back up onto the mat with our hands. A brief moment to lengthen the leg out long. And then when we swing this leg back, we come sitting down onto our glutes, both legs opening out to about 75% of their maximum. No need to go to 100% right now. Enough that we can sit up tall or bend the knees to let that posture happen. Lengthening the spine, we begin to walk the hands forward. Take your dear sweet time. You can stay a full minute or 2 up at this pose, and then use just the last little bit of time to go deeper if that's what happens today. Everybody has a different shape of their yoga poses on every different day. So approaching it today will be a different experience than approaching it tomorrow or 2 months from now. The body's constantly changing and adjusting and learning and growing. And that's what makes having this beautiful physical, biological body so important, so amazing to have this life in. Perhaps with this amount of time having relaxed, you're reaching a point where you want to go deeper. If that's the case, my recommendation to go deeper is to find that length from the base of the spine up to the head. Use that straightening of the spine to then walk forward before you release. That helps us to include not just the more flexible muscles, but include the whole spine and the extra length that's discovered. We're at our last 3 breaths right here. Maybe slight lengthening with the inhales, slight releases with the exhales. And 2 more cycles. And with that gentle motion, we're feeling ready to slide back in, bringing our legs together. We begin to roll all the way down onto our backs. From our backs, we've got one last shape that we're going to take, and this is cat chasing its tail. I'll give you variations if you can't do the full thing. The first part of it is the twist. So this right knee comes in, and the right knee twists all the way over to the left. That side rests down, and you just find this left hand resting onto the thigh. This is variation 1. Variation 2 of the right leg is extending that right leg straight, sliding the hand as far down as you can, maybe all the way to the foot. So this is the right leg. You've got those 2 options. With the left leg, you take this free right hand and try to grab those toes. Once you've got the grip, you return this right shoulder back to the earth. Now, if that part is not happening, don't stress too much. You can either grab a strap or just forget about that right hand connecting at all. Just focus on the twist. So you've got several variations to play with. Find your version of cat chasing its tail and start to breathe and relax into this beautiful shape with multiple benefits. Length through hamstrings, IT bands, spinal rotation, even quadricep stretching for that bottom thigh. Lots of things going on here. Maybe even the neck can gaze over to the right side, adding that part of the stretch into this pose as well. Here we're approaching our last 3 deep breaths for this side. Remember, deep means all the way into the belly while slowing the breath down. As we start to release our hands, it's almost like a rubber band action. The legs just kind of relax back to an easy spot. So then continue to gently add more motions until you find yourself at this nice neutral place, this starting position. From there, we take the second side. So left knee needs to come in so that it can twist over to the right. Once you started to twist, you have the additional option to straighten the leg out if it wants to. So those are the options for the left side. With the right, if you want to try to grab for those toes and then point the knee down toward the base of the mat as you open up the shoulder, that would be what gets us into that beautiful quadricep stretch as well. Remember, just like any other yoga pose in yin yoga, we take lots of time to experience the unraveling of the pose. It's almost like if you took a candy, like a chocolate candy, and you just kind of ate it. Yeah, you kind of get the taste of it, you kind of get the texture, and you kind of appreciate it. But if instead, you just take the time to slowly nibble on a piece and let that melt in your mouth and get to experience the whole transition from solid to liquid in your mouth and all that change of texture, and you get to have that whole entire experience. That's a very different kind of appreciation for the chocolate than it would have been just gobbling it down. That's what the yin classes are like. It's like slowly nibbling on a bit of the chocolate and then noticing how the body responds. What's willing to open, to relax, to lengthen, and what possibilities are available. Let's enjoy those last 3 delicious chocolate bites of this stretch for these last 3 breaths. third exhale is completed, we gradually release the hands. We return ourselves equally onto the mat. And we begin to discover what version of Shavasana our body would prefer during this point in our practice. Maybe we keep the knees up, just falling inward toward one another. Maybe we lengthen the legs straight, or maybe there's a different variation you're preferring today. All of these are allowed. Begin to find your way into your Shavasana today. And before we're completely in that process of relaxation, let's take another moment to scan through the body, checking in with what the systems of our body are telling us now, how they're feeling, how they would like us to treat them the rest of today, and if there's any additional maintenance we can do for them in the hours of today or in the upcoming days and weeks and months. So starting off at the feet, scanning through that. How do they feel? How can we love them more? Getting up the calves and knees. The thighs and hips. The whole spine. The arms and hands. The shoulders and neck. The head and face. Everything checked in, everything relaxed, and so we take those deep belly breaths through the next few minutes in our Shavasana. Begin to deepen the inhales and the exhales. Introducing little movements back to fingers and toes, ankles and wrists. Stretching out like we're waking up first thing in the morning. And eventually discovering a beautiful fetal position up to one side. Enjoying a couple more breaths until we're ready to rise up to a beautiful seated position, very comfortable for our bodies. Eventually rising all the way up, joining hands together in front of the heart. Close the eyes for a moment to check in with the body. Is there any additional preventative maintenance the body wants us to do for it today? And with that question to lead us onward into this marvelous day, let's wrap up the time we got to share together with the sound of Om. Inhaling now. Om. May we be filled with light and happiness and peace. Namaste.